I read it. Oh, good afternoon.
Hello.
Do you still say pivot nut? Yes, I am.
No.
Yes, you are.
Don't be
Shoot,
accusing
boy.
me. I'm over here spitting my hot Cheetos out.
Shoot, boy, you sure am. You sure you act like
No.
Well, pivot nut.
Well, eat the tea. I think it's Isani, which is it is a good day.
Oh, okay.
But Madalika stays the same all the time. So
does
that's my
does
fallback.
Fungal. Well, we decided to do an afternoon version, for the clients over at South Coast Behavioral, and I like the thought of getting to say hello to, part of my world's over there. Part of my world is over there. So Lily, by request of Mr. Levi, here we are. That's my baby over there. So we appreciate what South Coast is doing for the Oklahoma City community. And as a matter of fact, Mr. Evans, Justin, and Joe Summers stopped by yesterday. And, which was pretty cool, to think that we're even on their radar. But they stopped by, wanted to see where all the magic happens.
They were disappointed.
Yeah. No, they were just like, wow, like, y'all's really making this happen, with the bare minimum.
Yeah, it's like, that's a nice way to say it. This place is trash.
But, Miss Summers, she invited me to come on to her podcast. And she was like, I don't have the nerve to go live, but that's the only way we ever roll.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's weird if we have a pre-recording because I think we've only done it a couple times, and it throws everybody off.
Yeah,
we're like, all right, let's see the comments, and then looking at a blank screen.
Like then we gotta
talk.
Then we actually gotta interact.
Yeah, get to know each other.
But yeah, so the women they did a good job today. Very appreciative of them handling, doing their Women's Wednesday thing. The aunties always, they're always down to contribute. So we got to say thank you to them. But so now it's up to the fellas. We were thinking of like, should we do a reflection? We got a reflections book here finally. And they've already done the morning meditation, so we thought we should go with the thought of the day that we get from Don Coyes, from his page, his Facebook page.
Yep.
So do you feel like we should jump right off into it?
Don't matter to me. I'm just here along for the ride. All right, you got this.
Quit playing, bro.
You can read it.
I can, but
I know. See, you gotta.
I'm embarrassed.
You gotta believe. Don't care.
Go ahead. You read.
No. You can't
comment.
be embarrassed because you gotta remember. Some people cheer for stuff that's not even worth cheering. So, what does it matter if you're embarrassed for what they think?
No, that's what I think.
Yeah. Well, stop. Yeah.
It's my ego. It's my ego.
All right. So. Learning from mistakes. Mistakes are the stepping stones to wisdom. We learn from trial and error. We become wise by understanding problems. The past can hurt, but the way I see it, you can either run from it or learn from it. Everyone makes mistakes. The wise are not people who would never make mistakes, but those who forgive themselves and learn from their mistakes.
Read the one about love too.
You have to scroll. Your text is so big.
I know. I have one eye, bro.
Love has the power to heal the wounds caused by mistakes. It gives us the strength to learn from our errors and grow as individuals. Love allows us to see the beauty and imperfections and embrace our humanity.
Well, thank you, Mr. Chepina, for reading that. There are so many different thoughts, and when I think about my process, right? When I think about what it took for me to get to where I am today, I didn't just wake up one day and felt healed. It was definitely learning how to put one foot in front of the other. You know, and if there's one thing that I realized, it was that, you know, when you don't know, you know, like when you're uneducated about what it is to actually make a mistake, you know, like sometimes I didn't even know I was in the wrong, you know, because you know, like in your addiction, like you're so self-centered, right? Like nobody else matters when you're you know, the world revolves around you and you revolve around your addiction. You know, all my mistakes, everything that I was doing, you know, like it was centered around my addiction. So, you know, whenever I finally got into sobriety and I got a little bit of recovery going on, you know, like you got to definitely, you got to arrest the substances first. You know, like that's probably step one, you know, is uh, taking that step to be in a safe space so you can have some clarity and you can have like an ideal of what it is to actually be sober. You know, that's where all these emotions are coming from. That's where all these different, you know, like all these things I was running from started hitting me, and you know, like it was a lot sometimes. But one thing that always stuck with me was somebody told me like like you got to understand that your life was taken over because of drugs and alcohol. You know, and now that you know you detox from these things, like now you actually get the chance to deal with these things. You actually get the chance to look at where you messed up. You know, and like I said, that's a lot for a person to do because that's when that accountability comes in. You know, like that's where you got to understand where, like, yes, I was the problem. You know, there's no running from that. Yes, I was the problem. Maybe it was my environment. Maybe it was the people I was around. Maybe it was, you know, like the things that I thought was more important than my own kids. You know, like there's so many different scenarios where, you know, my addiction was at the forefront and I chased it and chased it and chased it. I gave it everything that you know, like I gave it everything. And whenever I didn't have anything left to give, it wanted more. You know, so it was like I didn't know how to learn from my mistakes because I was in survival mode. You know, when you're in survival mode, you're not learning your lesson. You're just trying to figure out how to get through that day. You know, or that, you know, whatever situation you're in. You know, you're not trying to learn your lesson. You're just trying to survive. You know, so I caught myself doing that a lot. And, you know, like, I didn't have no other way to solve my problems. You know, like, nobody held me accountable. You know, nobody knew what I was dealing with because I didn't know how to express my emotions. You know, like, physically, like I would walk across town because I knew where to go get high. But then my kids lived on the other side of town. And, you know, I tried, you know, I didn't want to go over there like all jacked up, you know. I'd go over there just a little bit jacked up. You know, like,
moderate.
Yeah, I'm not trying to bite my ear, you know, like, and, you know, like with that, because I didn't put them first, like that shame and that guilt just, man, like it was deadly. You know, like that's a deadly cycle that I was in. You know, that shame and guilt just kept me from being the person that I wanted to be. And then, you know, so then I find a reason to go use some more. You know, I find a reason to go get even higher, you know, than the day before, the week before, however long I would stay up. You know, and it was like I never seen the end coming. I never like gave myself the opportunity to realize what I was doing to myself, because then I'd wake up, you know, like, and you're always the last one to know that you fell asleep. Like when you're running and gunning like that and you're just always on the go and like, and you just happen to sit down and you eat a bologna sandwich or an egg sandwich or something, you know, and like you take an ibuprofen and like then you wake up like 8 hours later, like what the hell? Like check your pockets, like damn, did somebody get me? You know, and it's then you wake up and then you're off to the races. Like you're thinking about that before you're even trying to brush your teeth. You know what I mean? Like before, like, oh man, I was supposed to meet so and so today. You know, I got this hustle going on. You know, and it's just like chaos, chaotic. I mean, from as soon as you open your eyes, like, damn it, how come y'all didn't wake me up? You know what I mean? Like, shit, you need it. You're just getting weird. You know, like, you know, and I just remember living that life for so long. You know, just so then whenever I get sober, you know, you start learning, you start hearing about what it is to forgive. You know, that was a big one for me, you know, was learning how to forgive myself. You know, so then, you know, like when you get sober and you're not putting yourself in these situations, you know, like in my case, when I woke up in detox.
Can you answer it? Sorry.
when I woke up in detox and I didn't have to worry about all the things that I had to worry about, you know, while in my addiction. You can like, you know, like then it gets a little bit easier. Oh man, I don't have to worry about where my next meal is coming from. I don't have to worry about that somebody's gonna kill me because you know you get so high that everybody's trying to kill you. You know what I mean? Like the whole world's against you. You know, and you know, like you start to feel a sense of being in the present. You know, but I can't get what I was doing out of my mind. Like it's still driving me crazy. It still makes me feel like I want to use. You know, so when you start to kind of understand the sickness, you kind of start to understand what it is to live in active addiction. You know, and then you start to realize like, okay, this is a part of sobriety and recovery. And that mind, like the way my mind always tends to go to, is that's where addiction lives. Like, so you start to realize, like, am I going to choose my recovery? You know, am I going to choose me? Or, you know, is my addiction still taking over my thought process? You know, so like you start to distinguish the difference between the two. You know, and I'm a very simple-minded person. You know, like you have to damn near draw me a picture
or describe it,
or put it in layman's terms, you know, or like you're talking to a 4-year-old. You know, like that's how it had to be broke down to me, and that was how I understood it. But the lovely thing about it is there are people who are actually willing to show you the difference. You know, and I'm not, you know, like I'm not gonna go. This is what I realized is that I'm not going to go and take advice from somebody who has a week longer than me. You know, like they don't have the spiritual tools that it takes for me to make a sound decision. I'm going to go find somebody who has these principles and are practicing these things in all their affairs. You know what I mean? Like that's one thing about, because early in my recovery, I'm listening to Randy. You know, which, you know, he was a good guy to lean on because he had just came out of, you know, like working a program, then he went back and relapsed. But, you know, like I was, you know, like he still had a little bit more than me. You know, he was still, he learned how to practice these principles. And it was kind of like, you know, like I could start to see the difference between a good decision and a bad decision. Like I quit feeding off of my emotions. So, you know, I would have to say that learning how to love myself, self-care. To me, that's what a lot of recovery is. is self-care. To me, it's like at the highest level, because not only do you want to, like improve, mentally, physically, emotionally, but like spiritually. Like that's the game changer. Like where are you willing to put these values and these are you going to question your own beliefs? Like maybe I know through my process, the thought that maybe I am tripping. You know what I mean? Maybe I am paranoid. Like I had to question all these things because in my head everybody's out to get me. Like I told so many lies that I don't even believe myself, or I do believe myself. Like, and I keep trying to make sense of things that never ever need to be explained, because in that world it doesn't make sense. You know what I mean? And here I am sober, like, why did I steal that $20? Like,
trying to justify it.
Trying to, and the more you find a way to justify things, to me, that's just a part of addiction. Like you got to be accountable. Like you got to know, like when you're in the wrong. And you got to have people around you that'll be like, hey, bro, you tripping, dog. You know what I mean? Like one of the bros, the other day, he posted that it was his birthday. Somebody sent him money. And then the next day, it's like I felt like he was doing it to be like, ha ha. Like, it's really not my birthday, but thank you for sending me the money. I'm like, you got to give that money back. A couple laughing emojis, a couple people laugh. And I'm like, nah, bro, like, people in recovery have it hard enough. The last thing that we need is people around us thinking that people are in sobriety still trying to pull these schemes. And he took down the post. He sent me a message like, damn, bro, like, why'd you have to call me out? Like, and I'm like, nah, bro, because I love you, I'm gonna hold you accountable. Like if you were just Joe Schmo, I ain't gonna say nothing. I'm just thinking like, damn, I hate to have that karma. But because like that's my bro, I'm gonna hold you accountable. Like that's the circle that, those are the people I roll with today. When you're wrong, you got to admit it. And like, I can't remember exactly what step that is right now, but I want to say fifth or sixth step. But either way, like that's the circle that I have today. Is learning from my mistakes. And there's a lot of things where I played the victim. I played the victim in so many different bad choices that I made. I'm just a victim of my surroundings. You know what I mean? Like I'm always willing to chalk it up for, because it's somebody else's fault. Mm-hmm. But, like my boy Chad always says, victims and tough guys don't get sober. If you're always the victim mentality, then it's never your fault. And then, of course, with the tough guy, it's always their ego. They don't know how to ask for help. So, I mean, that was a big part, is the lovely thing that I love today about what I get to do today is that I've realized that all the bad mistakes, all the bad choices, every peer out there can, they understand what I'm saying when I say, every bad choice I've ever made, every mistake I've ever made in my life can be used to save somebody else's. I mean, that's crazy. Who would have known that, me smoking up somebody's diaper money would save somebody's life today? Yep. You know what I mean? Like that's crazy, But I mean, I also don't, I'm not the victim anymore. Like I hold myself accountable, and I can see where these things didn't happen to me; they happened for me. Because look how, like, look how I'm able to use these things today. You know, I'm not afraid to, you know, and I don't just sit here and go on Facebook and be calling people out or nothing. You know what I mean? Like, I'm not
That's
Marcos.
his afternoon
Yeah,
portion.
yeah. I'm not Marcos, you know. But, you know, it's like, I'm going to hold my people accountable. That's the circle, you know, and that's what I expect too. You know, like, I talk crazy every once in a while on Facebook, you know, like, I probably say some things that are out of line, you know, and if somebody, you know, I'd apologize for it. But learning from my mistakes, man, that's because then I look at like so many people in my family, you know, like on my Boton side, you know, like, man, it's crazy, you know, like I watched a whole generation, you know, like wither away, you know, like they didn't get to teach us nothing. You know, and if they did, it was probably the wrong thing.
The mistakes to learn.
Yeah, you know, I used to have an aunt that would come pick us up from Darlington. She would be sniffing paint, smoking crack, and drinking vodka at the same time, with the joint burning in the ashtray. That's, you know, like that's what I was raised around. And unfortunately, you know, she was like my mom when I was in El Reno, and you know, she died from cirrhosis. You know, at like 36 or 30, you know, like she was young. You know, and you know, I just can't allow that for my grandkids today. You know, like I'm not only thinking about my grandkids, but I'm thinking about their grandkids. You know what I mean? And maybe their grandkids. You know, like that's how like I'm trying to change the narrative. I have to admit when I'm wrong, and I gotta say I'm sorry for what I've done. You know, and it's a tough, you know, like when you first do it, you know, what do I call it? The amends tour. You know, when you're on your amends tour, you know what I mean? Like, and you got to go to all these people, you know, like, I'm not even going to lie. Like, most of them, like, I'll make living amends. You know what I mean? Like, because, I mean, it was just, you know, like, I didn't put my hands on you. I didn't, you know what I mean? Like, I was trying to excuse my actions. And I still got one more niece, you know. One time I got drunk and I kicked in a door. Just blank. Kicked in the door. And it really, like, affected her, like, mentally. You know what I mean? Like, she's still scared of me. And she's grown. You know what I mean? And I hate to think, like, that I had the effect on somebody like that. You know, I remember one time this guy stole my $10 scales. $10. That's all they cost. $10. But the fact that he came over to my house and he stole them. And then whenever I went and asked for them back, you know, I'm like, can I have my scales back? He's like, those are my scales. You know what I mean? Like, what? I got out and I started trying to stab him. Like, chasing him around this van. And my daughter's inside the van. My daughter, Brianna. And I'm like trying to stab, you know what I mean? Like, $10 scales, really?
Yeah, the knife was more expensive.
Yeah, and his father-in-law runs up and tries to hit me with the fifth of vodka or whatever. It hit the window. You know, like it went right by my face. Boom. And that's what stopped me. I was like, damn. But D-Boy and my daughter Brianna were in the van. And D-Boy's like, I better get out and help him. And my daughter grabbed him and was like, please don't encourage my dad. Like, can we just go? And, you know, like, I couldn't catch him, so I just jumped back in the van and, like, it's nobody's business. You know what I mean? Like, man, I have, you know, like, just so much that I brought on not only me, but the people around me. You know, so what did I learn from that mistake? You know, quit smoking cigarettes. Maybe I would have caught. Nah, I'm just kidding.
Stretch. You can stretch first.
Yeah.
I learned to tie my shoes.
I'm just kidding. You know, But those are the like you would think it's simple math. Like quit dealing drugs, people wouldn't be trying to steal stuff from you. No, that didn't make sense. You know what I mean? Like then I can't keep my addiction going. Like you're trying to make sense of things that don't need no explanation over here, but then like as a human, as a person who learned how to love himself again over here, like you understand that protecting your peace at all costs. The people that ain't in my life just weren't meant to be there. The places that I used to love to be, like I ain't got time for that. And then the things that I used to do, like I definitely had to get a hobby. And it's usually just laying in front of my TV about 2 feet away. Eating. Yeah, eating. And nobody comes to my house. I don't go nowhere. I'm going to sweat tonight. Like that's my circle. Those are the people that I get to go sweat with with my brother-in-law. I get to go sweat with, my brother Dave. I get to go sweat with, my painter. That's the crowd you can catch me around today. Those are the things that I get to do today because of sobriety, because of recovery. I get to go and pray tonight and think about other people. And I feel blessed. I feel blessed that I even have the opportunity because there's so many of our people that are out there dying from this disease. Like I just heard about, one of our tribal members in Clinton, died, she overdosed. And it's just this, and it's going on more and more, like it's just crazy to think that maybe they just have a mental health, maybe there's something that stressed them out and they're just trying to find some relief. And because of that, I heard she just got out of jail, and she tried to go back and use, and we all know how that turns out. She went back, relapsed, and she lost her life. I'm trying to change the narrative of what it is in our community. I'm trying to understand like what this disease actually looks like. And it comes in so many different forms. It affects so many different people. Like just got a call from my aunt a while ago. That's why I had to walk out a while ago. And I got family, that I love dearly and they're struggling just like I used to, and that's the only thing that sucks about this is that you can't go grab them and put them in the headlock and walk them to detox, like I would have never gotten sober. It has to be, that change it's got to come from the inside. You got to be the change you want to see in the world. So that's all I got. I'm out of here. Peace.
Monologue. I'm over here just like, dang, my stomach's really rumbling. My lunch.
Why am I even on here?
Yeah, my lunch of champions. Yeah. Well, I had hot Cheetos and two cheese sticks, and that was it.
That's all you need.
I know, and then I think Theta coughed on this microphone.
Great.
There's like a chunk of something, so it couldn't. But I can't reach it. So,
well, how did you learn from your mistakes?
Operation.
Did you learn? Were you wise and you learned from other people's mistakes?
That's what I was going to talk about.
Okay.
All right. Yeah, I think we all can learn from one another, especially children. So if you guys haven't heard me talk about how I'm somehow in this position, it was mainly from my personal connection with substances in my household. And so I was like, I was that kid that was getting driven around, while the driver was probably blank. Who knows?
Popping chips.
Yeah, and then I was just surrounded by alcohol, and I saw my elders, so my grandma's generation, they were all sober at the time, or they still are, but hopefully. But I would see the difference in lifestyles, in that active addiction and then that active recovery life. And so I was able to learn, we don't all have to go through all of these trials and tribulations throughout our life. We could learn from the ones that already did and found that solution. And so that's why I was able to, learn from my grandma. Then I got to see my mom go through recovery whenever I was in high school. And so seeing that polarity from inactive addiction and active recovery, it solidified pretty much my stance on I didn't want to touch drugs or alcohol. Like, I was offered it all the time, many times, especially in the military. You get offered everything, but then after a while, after they know you, then like, oh, there's our DD, and then and then they'll be like, we'll buy you whatever food you want, and I'm like, yes. And then so, it's like it has yeah, just like it was just great because like you would have all these people, even though they weren't dependent on substances. It might have been a fine line, but they would still support my sobriety or abstinence or whatever you want to call it from substances. And then seeing what it's done for my family. So like, my wife is sober, my kids are sober, my mom, my grandma, my grandpa, all of them. And so it's healing. It's learning from mistakes, but then learning from how people overcame those mistakes, how people found the solution is the key. And then so I think that's why I lean so heavily on our peers out here, because I see that peers are the solution. It's not all this education. It's not all this certification. It's that lived experience that can change people's lives. And that's why I kind of like volunteering all you guys all the time. Oh, be like, hey, go talk to these kids over here or go present or anything, because the peer story it's tragic, but it's beautiful. It's where the magic happens. Yeah, and it's so great to see how all of these peers have such a massive effect whenever they didn't even think they had that power in them. And I think Theta and I were talking on the way back from camp yesterday about like how other programs will hire people, right? Want peers with like degrees and all this stuff.
Yeah.
And I'm like, no, I mean, I say low standards, but it's not even low standards. But like, I'm like, just as long as you can show up, like, and then that's it. And how a lot of our peers, I know that's he but seeing like, people are always like so nervous whenever I ask them about like their background or like what they were, what their DOC was. And so seeing them come from being shy, like, oh, I liked meth was my thing. And then and then I was like, do you have any like charges? And then like maybe drug trafficking and then I'm like, yes. Yeah. And so like, it's something that is unexpected, but seeing them grow into somebody that's able to share that story and share that experience is huge. And I think what we have in the works now about talking about our youth panel that we want to do for a speaker night eventually.
Great idea.
That way we can see the kids' perspective of learning from their family's mistakes, because we do see a lot of kids talk about it all the time about
more open about it.
Yeah, it's pretty cool to see, because we they'll just say that like they don't want to be a part, they don't want drugs and alcohol to be a part of their life, like it was their parents.
Shame and guilt. A lot of shame and guilt.
And so I think as a community, we all learn from people's mistakes. It's just what we do with that information is what will change.
For sure.
All right.
No. So do we have any good comments?
Yeah,
Mr.
you gotta
Sleeper?
get in the
game.
Yeah.
Get in the game, son.
Gotta wake up.
Scroll all the way.
It was mainly Nat just ad-libbing on your monologue. She's like, yeah, get him.
Go ahead and read and start from the first one and go down, Mr. Sleeper.
Patrice Spotterwolf said, good afternoon.
Good afternoon, Patrice.
Tobias Morales said, good afternoon.
Hey, brother Toby, we're having a sweat tonight. Give me a call, and I'll give you more info whenever. But yeah, give me a call.
Okay. David Deere said, good afternoon.
Stumble David.
Natalie Harjo said, that's step 10.
Who?
Natalie Harjo.
Who?
Yeah. You'll start pointing at her. She's right there.
That girl.
Ego's crazy.
You gotta speak up. Speak into the mic.
My bad. Natalie Harjo said, ego's crazy, especially when we are in our addictions.
Next time, why don't you just say it out loud?
I did. You didn't hear me.
Oh.
Yeah, you were rolling.
That's up.
They hard to say. Some of us don't have another relapse in us.
I know, right? Some of us don't get a second chance.
Stacy Starr, Keen Shirt, Darian,
Ooh,
Shibata.
thank you. Bucky.
Oh,
Shit,
you let me hang
I
like
almost
that,
had the
Stacey?
matching swimsuit, but it's too big.
You don't like my shirt?
I wear an extra
Yeah.
small.
Where's my shirt?
It's the old tour.
I had no idea I was wearing
Whatever
this
Dad
shirt.
laid on the bed.
I had no idea I was wearing this shirt. I swear to God.
Pick out your clothes.
Yeah.
I know. I had no idea I was
It sounds
wearing
like
this
Jayla
shirt.
and Ari. Look at what I picked. Yeah, I got dressed by myself.
Wow. Okay.
Shirt
Who's next?
Leslie Short T said, "Good morning, Brother Barry. I am
Good morning,
happy
sis.
that I am sober. I've been sober for 10 years now because my son is 9 years old."
Hell yeah. Give my nephew Christian a hug.
Natalie Harjo, Darian, Shibata.
Oh my God. Does that girl have a life?
Qualifications be like, how hard did you tear it?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Was what
Give her
was
say your mom's
torn?
TV.
Is it now shorn?
Yeah. You ever say your mom's TV?
Yeah.
Mary Faye Blackout said, "I had the pleasure of meeting a beautiful Arapaho woman on the White Shore, North Dakota. Ellen Sutton.
Ellen Sutton. Isn't that?
I know Ellen.
Yeah.
Ellen used to live. Okay, her two oldest kids, Ashlyn and
Oh, it's in the rest of the
Jacob.
comment.
Yeah.
So she used to babysit you guys?
Yeah, she did. She actually used to live with us. Yeah, she used to be with my cousin Turtle. And Turtle, when she got pregnant with Ashlyn's, they came and lived with us. So that's cool. Yeah. That's
Small
cool.
world, small world.
Big fan.
What else?
Crystal Paul Goggle Eye said hello.
Hello, Miss Goggle Eye.
Minnesota here.
All right. Yeah, we
We were
just
just
in
there.
Minnesota a couple weeks ago. Well, last week? Yeah. Last week we were in St. Paul. Beautiful city.
Dave Levi said, "Your heart said ish pivot."
Aho.
Leslie Short Tees, Brother Barry, I love your shirt. Let me have it, Lou.
Go ahead. I didn't know I had it on.
Yeah, you won't miss it.
Yeah.
Didn't even know I had it.
I didn't know I had it on, but yeah. So, I was thinking about, like they say, smart people learn from their own mistakes. Wise people learn from other people's mistakes. I've never been very wise. Like, you couldn't tell me, like, I always had to go find out the hard way.
Mhm.
And I heard something today that's kind of been sticking with me about how my life used to go. I remember I'd be hungover, and like I'm not the type to just sit there and feel like I want to throw up. I got to go like shove my finger down my throat and go make myself
Find the
sick.
cure.
But I heard something today about this guy that I listened to on, he's on my Facebook Reels. And he said, I used to hear my mom get sick and pray to God, like, please, God, please help me. Because that's how sick she would be. Please, God, please help me. Please help me. And as a kid, he used to ask her, why don't you pray before you start drinking? Like a kid, he was a kid when he would ask his mom that. Why don't you pray to God before you start drinking? And to me, like, that was like perfectly how my life used to run. I would never need God until I, was in a situation that I had no control over. Taco Bell, and a fifth of JD right on top of it. Yeah, like I had money. KD. Yeah. Like to me, that's exactly how your addictive mind works. It's like you didn't learn your mistake from the day before. It was the very, the day before when you felt this exact same way. And then, that's when you cry out for God. It's after it's too late. You have to go through that process again. And more than likely, the only thing that's going to cure you is another drink. You know, when I think about all the mistakes that I've made in my life, I think about where I never even thought about consulting the Creator. I never even thought about it. Like, you know, like today, that's just part of my process. You know, I consult God about any major, decision that I got to make today. Even the little ones.
Even minors.
Even the little ones. You know, I ask God to come into my mind. I ask God to come into my heart. You know, I ask God to give me His words. You know, like, and let the person that needs to hear what I have to say, let their ears and hearts be open. You know, to accept, because, you know, like, my way isn't the only way, you know, but I don't like go into this thing thinking like I'm here to heal anybody that wants to listen. No, hell no. Like I know what happened in my process, you know, and I know where I found my solution. Am I healed? No, I got to work on this thing every day. You know, I have to learn from my mistakes every day. You know, just because Barry got sober doesn't mean that life got a little bit easier, but it only got easier because I was given the tools on how to not drink myself to death. I mean, you know, like that's the biggest difference.
Dave says, what's some advice? I feel like that just tied into the advice for the guys at South Korea before Bruce. And I cannot read today. Advice, but I think it's learn from your mistakes.
I mean, you know, like. Wait, read the question.
I gotta go get out.
It's what is some advice for the guys here at South Coast?
Okay.
And then,
shut the F up. Nah, I'm just kidding. You know, I would have to say that, okay, you tried things your way. Like, that's one thing that I realized about my process. When I'm sitting in detox, like, okay, I tried it my way. The best results that I had was to go get high and go get drunk. Those were the best results that, you know, that was the best ideal I could come up with. That was the only solution that made me feel better. And, you know, like, and all that is digging that hole deeper, right? You know, you find out that hitting your bottom, there's a dungeon, you know, and then there's, you know,
a cellar,
or you know, yeah, like it just keeps going and going. You know, that's a deadly, that's a deadly way to approach that thing. And more, you're gonna find people turning to that result than to actually work on themselves. Okay, so you know, like I tried it my way. Okay, so I see all these other people who are sober, you know, Dave, you know, like, you know, Justin, you know, Dallas, Shannon, you know, like I see all these other people that, you know, have some time, a little bit of time under their belt, and they're happy, you know, like they, you know, things are working out in their life. You know, I would have to say, you know, like that's what I wanted. I wanted to be able to smile without faking it. Mm-hmm. You know, I wanted to be able to engage in like a fruitful conversation where there's some kind of, you know, where we're not just talking about scheming. You know, we're not just talking about, oh man, I used to get so high. I used to get, you know, like in detox, everybody's always trying to one up each other. You know, but we all have the same problem. Mm-hmm. You know, so, you know, like you got to start cracking open some books. You got to start looking at, you know, this literature. And I was told whenever I start to read these books and I start to question myself and my beliefs, you know, that it's going to find a way to open up my mind. You know, I got to be willing, though. I got to be willing to make that change, though. You know, willingness isn't just showing up at a meeting and just kicking back. Now, willing means like you're willing to speak about your addiction. You know, nobody can ever take that from you. You know what I mean? It's your experience. You know, and if you're trying to compare it to other people's, oh, mine isn't that bad. then go out and try to drink and get high again and tell me what's changed. You know what I mean? Like, you can always refund that misery. But, like you have to be willing. You got to have an open mind, and you got to be teachable. That is like the 3 components of my life that, like even today, 4 years and a couple months, like that's still exactly who I am today. Like I go to a meeting to hear something good. I want to go because, like iron sharpen irons. So I mean, you got to find a way. If you can't find a way, I would pray about it. Pray about going to these meetings. Pray about trying to understand the literature. Like I had to have like a dictionary next to my big book because, there's just some words that blew my mind. Yeah.
Didactic?
Yeah. Like
Transgenerational, hereditary, whatever it was that you're talking about?
Transgenerational, epigenetic inheritance.
There we go. That's the one.
So, but, like just trying to say anonymity.
Yeah.
Like,
Anonymity.
it took me like 4 or 5 months.
It's like Mingo reading.
Like, I don't know. But, like once you practice these healthy habits, you start to, like me, I slowly started understanding the concept. I slowly, like, I felt like every time I read a page, I could read it over and over and over, and I would get something different out of it every time. That's the crazy thing about it. Is like consult the Creator about what you're about to do. Ask Him for His guidance. Ask Him, for Him to lead you and, let you learn what you need to learn about yourself that day. Don't do everybody else's inventory. Who cares if Leanna's got an attitude problem? You know what I mean? Like life keeps,
She's mean sometimes.
It's funny because his mom's name is Leanna too. So. But I'm glad we got to do this. I felt, and I want my baby to know that I love her. I'm so proud of where she is today, and nothing makes a dad happier, whenever you realize that your baby is trying to better herself. And like I said, I'm not only is she thinking about herself, but she's thinking about my grandkids. And because of the things that she's doing today may affect her grandkids. Like that's how this thing keeps going. That's how we, let's do something different. And, and from what I've heard, the rest of her family, like they're trying to make that change too. And I feel like she's leading the way for that, for them. So I'm very happy. I'll do this any day of the week, if my baby gets to see her daddy. You know what I mean? Like that means the world.
Nobody else though. Nobody else.
Yeah. Yeah. But is there anything else that you would like to?
No. Your brother Drew says good afternoon.
Good afternoon, Bubs.
And Nessa Madbull says good afternoon.
Good afternoon, Nessie, Loch Ness Monster.
I think she was replying to Dave about step work in prayer is suggested.
Suggested, yes. They're only suggestions. Like you're gonna find out the hard way. Like I said, we've already tried things your way. Let's give give yourself a chance. And get out of God's way and allow Him to do what He needs to do in your life. And don't wait until you're sick to consult God. Do it before
Taco Bell.
Yeah. You want to have a blowout, you know what I mean? I don't know. You might have to pick up something heavy. I don't know. But, I feel like that's all that I got. Well, I'm glad we got to do this. I always enjoy getting on here. And, hopefully I'll be, I think, I'm glad. I'm glad for my brother Dave for reaching out and allowing me to have this, this opportunity. So I believe that's all I got. Like, share, follow. Tell your mammy about us. Go ahead and click on it once, and we will get ready to say goodbye. So we will see you tomorrow morning, I believe, right? What do we got going
I got
on?
emergency vacation. Emergency.
Oh,
Surprise
hell.
vacation. Tomorrow we're just helping the summer youth workers make hand drums or paint them. I don't know yet.
I'm not going.
It's here. And then Friday's family wellness week in
In Clinton.
from 11 to 6. So
Okay.
show up.
Well, check out our tour page. It has more about our powwow coming up in
Rest recovery
September.
page. Rest recovery page.
Recovery
We're
page.
not sure.
Oh yeah. That's right. That's right. We have to separate the two entities.
Entities.
I don't know, but yeah, the two entities.
The two antis.
We have to separate. But we will see you tomorrow. I hope.